Hi, I'm Bella Perez Rubio, PumaPodcast, and you're listening to Teka Teka News. Balitang thinking, hindi breaking. In this episode,
Those they have arrested before or who were not Remulla are not rich, they're not connected, they aren't powerful. So, on the other side, if you're poor, if you're marginalized, if you're unconnected, then clearly your rights won't be respected. And I'm talking about the right to due process.
a lawyer representing drug war victims, their families, and others who have been arrested or forced to surrender over illegal drug charges weighs in on the high-profile case against the son of Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Boying Remulla. On October 11, authorities arrested 38-year-old Juanito Jose Remulla III and seized from him 900 grams of a type of marijuana called Kush, approximately worth 1.3 million pesos.
It's a top tier crime in the sense that this is among the crimes in the Comprehensive Dangerous Drugs Act that carries yung maximum penalty, reclusion perpetua.
That's attorney Cristina Conti. She works for the National Union of People's Lawyers. She's also with another group called Rise Up for Life and Rights, which represents at least 200 families of victims of the country's bloody anti-illegal drug campaign. Finally, she's also assistant counsel to the International Criminal Court.
I think there is another charge, no, after he was charged with possession, there is another charge of importation, which I'm not sure has been filed already against him. And yung two-pronged na charges na yon means that he's among those who is part of the supply side of the drug trade. Hindi lang siya simpleng user. Because if you're on the other end of the drug trade, so yung dun sa demand side, there's a sort of different treatment according to the law even, no? Kasi sabi nga noon pa, no, the pusher save the user. Doon siya sa pusher na side.
Christina says that many of her clients, mothers of drug war victims, their first reaction to the news of Remulla's arrest was to feel sympathy, but that quickly changed when they saw the so-called special treatment afforded to the Justice Secretary's son.
Actually, hindi ko masabing shock no? Even for the mothers. Kasi ang tingin nila, even if it would not be Secretary Remulla, it would be someone else privileged enough to pull this off. To be frank, some of the mothers were livid with rage because of the reaction and the treatment of the son. So doon napapasok yung, ay, anong kaibahan nating dalawa? Ay, galit na ang papasok dyan.
For one, Remulla's arrest was only made public on October 13, 2 days after the fact. And it was his uncle, Cavite Governor John Vic Remulla, who first broke it to the media. Another notable anomaly is the fact that Remulla's son was asked to take a drug test, and he declined. If he had tested positive, he could have faced another drug charge.
You could be charged for use. Okay, so if you're a user or you test positive for it, you can be charged for use. Kanina nabanggit natin yung user, save the user. Actually, for use, there is parang levels. If you're caught for the first time, the penalty is actually 6 months rehabilitation. So, ganun yung spirit ng law. You should be rehabilitated for 6 months. Only after the first offense, kung second, third offense, saka siya nagiging criminal act na pwede kang makulong. So that's an additional charge, yes.
But the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency said the drug test was quote-unquote not material to the case. And Christina notes that having the option to refuse a drug test is a privilege not typically extended to others facing illegal drug charges.
As to the drug test itself, grabe yung niyan, kaibahan niyan dun sa, nabanggit ko kanina, poor and marginalized and disempowered. They aren't afforded that choice. In fact, forced ang drug test sa kanila. So for all I know, the police already included this mandatory drug tests for drugs suspects in their protocol. Kaya nung panahon ng drug war, meron talagang drug testing sa mga suspects. Kaya nakakagulat na biglang may option pala or optional para kay Remulla yung ganitong drug test.
We'll pause here, but when we return, we take a look at how the Marcos administration has responded to this high profile case. Coincidentally enough, as Remulla's arrest took place, his father, the Justice Secretary, was in Geneva discussing the country's drug war before the United Nations Human Rights Committee. Justice Secretary Remulla, who in 2019 told CNN Philippines that he was in favor of reinstating the death penalty for drug-related crimes, emphasized to the panel of human rights experts just how serious the drug problem in the Philippines continues to be. He was talking specifically about methamphetamine hydrochloride, or shabu.
Probably in some jurisdictions, in some cultures, it is the individual right that's always the most important. But in our country, families are very important. This drug is something that our country despises so much because of its effects on every family in our country. And I hope you can understand that this approach to drugs is sometimes very harsh because of the experience that we have had on methamphetamine hydrochloride addiction in our country.
Remulla Sr. has vowed not to interfere with the case, adding that no appeals will be handled by his department and will go straight to the courts. In a press conference held on October 18, the Justice Secretary maintained that he has not had any contact with his son since the arrest.
I haven't talked to him, actually, since the beginning. I've stayed away from the case. I have not talked to anybody. I have not asked anybody any favor. I just talked to a cousin of mine who's a lawyer who will start or has started representing him already. That's everything that I have to do with the case. I have nothing else to do with the case.
And President Bongbong Marcos has brushed off calls for Remulla's resignation.
I think the calls for him to resign have no basis. You call for somebody to resign if he's not doing his job or that they have misbehaved in that job. He has not done any of that, quite the contrary. He has taken the very proper position that he is recusing himself from any involvement in the case of his son. I think that being the Secretary of the Department of Justice, he is very, very aware that he must allow the processes of the judiciary to work properly and that no one in the executive should interfere.
But Attorney Cristina pointed out that avoiding conflicts of interest isn't that simple.
Ang hirap din ito kasi you're the chief and all those below you will look up to you to make policy directions. And even if you don't say anything, your actions and even your nonverbal cues would really reflect on this matter.
When Remulla's mugshots were first released by authorities, they blurred out his face, a policy PDSS they've been enforcing since 2021.
Sa susunod na meron silang mahuling big-time drug pusher, tingnan natin kung i-blur yung itsura, yung picture. Sa susunod na may nahuli silang suspect, papadrug test ba nila? So, they're going to set the standards from henceforth. Para tong litmus test They have put this case in a position na, okay, this would be the example from this point forward. Then let's see how they would treat the cases moving forward.
It also further complicates matters that Remulla chose a relative to represent his son.
I would be iffy about that kasi parang kamag-anak ng Secretary of Justice pa rin to. Although, of course, it's their choice to get their own defense lawyer. Pero if I were him, I would get someone who was not a relative. Kasi imagine a defense lawyer who's connected to the Secretary of Justice. I mean, by blood. Di lalo nang nadagdagan yung thicker blood ties, kumbaga.
Secretary Remulla also told the UN this earlier this month.
President Marcos has refocused on the anti-illegal drug campaign, tackling the source of the problem. He has stated that criminal masterminds must be apprehended and punished, not small-scale users on the street.
If that's true, That would mean authorities should be giving more priority to prosecuting suspected illegal drug pushers like Remulla's son.
This is just one incident, no, na parang, remember, we're talking about trade. So, ang sabi, nahulihan siya, so possession, may hawak. And then on the other hand, he was importing for this particular instance. But what about other instances? Well, for me, the next logical thing would be think about other times that he has done this. And then have the police investigate that. Is he part of the ring? How long has he been doing this? Who is his supplier? Is this a local supplier, an international supplier? Is he a middleman? Is he passing on the drugs down the chain?
Rather than wash his hands of the situation, Christina says Secretary Remulla should walk the talk and allow his department to launch a full-scale investigation.
When this case is filed, the objective is to secure a conviction. You have to make sure that your case is airtight, complete, and strong. So when this case is filed, that's the intention of the National Prosecution Service, the Secretary of Justice talaga. Let's see how it turns out now.
And that was today's episode of Teka Teka. Again, I'm Bella Perez Rubio. This episode was produced by Kat Ventura and edited by Presh Capistrano. If you like this episode, give it a 5-star rating on your podcast app. It really helps get the word out about our show. At para sa mga mahilig manood sa YouTube, Puma Podcast na rin po kami doon. Just search Puma Podcast and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for listening.